Hi
Hi.
everyone, welcome to another Unived Live. Today we have our very own Unived athlete Nivedita with us to speak about a very interesting topic, very vast, very interesting, and very less spoken about. We are glad to have you here, Nivedita, with us. Thank you for taking your time out to share.
Thank you so much
Um,
and for having me, asking me to do this. I'm always excited to talk about this topic.
yeah. So, a little bit about Nivedita. She is a Unived athlete, a certified marathon running and performance specialist, and a performance lead India with Adidas Runners. She resides in Delhi along with her husband and is a dog mom to Hela and Po, who you might hear in the background today. We are excited for
Yes.
his yeah. And Nivedita began running as a 13-year-old in her boarding school. She later went on to at the Vodafone Foundation India. Circling back to running in 2016, Nivi quit her full-time job to pursue her true passion in running and fitness to start her venture, FitRabbits, where she inspires people to discover their fittest selves. FitRabbits offers online coaching plans for blending fitness and running, right from 5K to 100 kilometers, and has diverse clients, men, women, teenagers across our country. She ran her first Boston Marathon in 2019 and will be at the starting line this year as well. Congratulations. As a marathoner, her personal best time in half marathon is 1:37. Full marathon is 3:20. So we are glad to have you here, Nivedita, and excited to learn so much about the woman physiology and the training that an athlete needs to go through.
Yes, like you mentioned, and thank you for the kind uh, introduction. So I've been running all my life, right? And when I started as a 13-year-old, this is actually something that I want to start talking about, right? As a young girl who was running a lot, also feeling conscious about the way I looked, etc. Even though I went to boarding school, I didn't necessarily have the support or the guidance one needs when one is at that teenage level about to get her first period. And I
Correct.
remember for the longest time, in school, I would have irregular periods, and people would be like, oh, it's okay. And this is, back in the 90s, right? Where there was literally no conversation. And, you know, we were even shy to talk about it ourselves. And I remember I came back home and my chachi, she's American. She was here visiting in the US and visiting from the US. And, so she actually, started talking to me about it. And then I was like, no, I don't really get my period that often. And she said, well, that's a problem. And over the next 1 month that I had my winter holiday, she actually, kept an eye on how much I was eating, just made sure I was eating wholesome meals and things like that. And I, used to, at that age, I used to constantly get injured, whether it was knee pain, shin splints, this, that, or the other. From the time I was 13 years old till about 16 years of age, I was always injury ridden, or something or the other would keep constantly happening. But, that was the first time when I realized that food plays a integral part in training as a person. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female, but as girls, one needs to be really, really careful when we are younger, because that's when your hormones fluctuate. That's when your body is preparing itself for maturity. And you don't want to mess up your endocrine system, right? I feel like a lot of us end up with PCOD or PCOS in our late 20s, because that's when we actually start caring for our health, because we don't realize how important health is in our future. So that's my
Yeah.
introduction statement. Yes, really sorry, it was longer than expected.
No, I think just to point out that, yeah, when girls, especially teenagers, they get a lot of advice, but they don't know what to do with it. And there's just so many things happening physically, mentally, emotionally, and especially like at that age if you're training, so you don't really know who to listen to and what to do because you're so focused on your performance and you're performance oriented that these things seem to not matter when they actually do. So just to start with this conversation, a very basic question that even I, as a, I'm not even an athlete, but I'm fairly active. Um, that we have is that do you or do you not train while you're menstruating, while you're in your bleeding phase? And should you be avoiding certain types of workouts? Should you rest instead? Or what is the impact of menstrual cycle on your training and exercise?
So I'll start with first the inspirational piece, right? Yashwini, are you there? Feel like you're hanging up. Okay, no, you're there.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm here.
so the Paula Radcliffe is a very famous female marathoner. She's British. And in the year, I think it was 1998, she broke the then marathon record on day two of a period. Um, so just to start with that, and you know, menstruating is only one part of three phases of your menstrual cycle, right? That bleeding phase is only phase one of your three
Correct.
phases. I'm going to keep it very simple. So that menstruation part is basically the day one of your cycle. And most people, for most people, it lasts between 3 to 7 days. It depends on, it's a very personal thing. For me as well, it fluctuates often, especially when I'm training for my marathons, right? Even though it's regular, for example. So, that time is when your hormones for the female body, the estrogen and the progesterone are the two key hormones that, may keep us either happy or make us super cranky. But when we
Yeah.
are on our period, actually, our hormones are stable. That's actually a good time to do high intensity work because there is more blood flowing through your body. Recovery is easier
Okay.
at that time. Sure, a lot
Yeah.
of us, I think 80% of women get menstrual cramps. But research has proven that if you stay active and eat well and eat smart throughout your menstrual cycle, which is the three phases, you can actually feel happier, less cranky, less bloated, and less crampy during your period. So that's phase one. Phase two is basically what's called the ovulation phase, right? I'm not going to confuse everyone. So ovulation is just one day, which happens usually on the 14th day of your cycle, and that's the one
Correct.
day where estrogen is at its highest. And
Hmm.
that's one of the days when most of us feel bloated. We feel like, there's brain fog. We can't really focus on things. We feel tired. uh, that's the day when we don't necessarily want to do anything. And it's absolutely okay to not do anything because that's just one day. Now, the third phase, which is the most important phase, in my opinion, for us to stay active, is called the luteal phase. And that basically happens between the 11th to the 17th day. Right before you get your period, but not really, right? It's bang in the middle. And that's when your estrogen and your progesterone become really high, and that leads to inflammation in the body, and that's what basically is when you get PMS. uh, and that's when you crave things. You tend to eat crave, like, super high in sugar, fried foods. Again, do not have motivation because you are feeling super cranky. You feel like things are hurting, but it's recommended that you do steady workouts, right? So for you, for example, if you walk every day for 15 to 20 minutes, people recommend that you continue doing that because it will make you feel better. You have that craving to eat the high sugar, heavily fried foods, don't do that because the fried foods is what, right? It causes more inflammation. and will end up
Hmm.
making you feel worse, even though it'll make you feel really good for the first 15-20 minutes. But then, as your body digests it, you're going to feel more inflamed. So, mota
Correct.
moti, that's the three big phases that we need to be aware of, really. A lot of people say
Yeah.
that there are four phases, but the fourth phase is really the overlapping phase from, the third day of your period till you actually get your period.
Yeah. I think it is so much more important to talk about the entire
Yeah,
cycle rather than just the bleeding phase, because the bleeding phase is where you usually go through a lot of physical, like 80%, like you said, 80% of women are just facing like the cramps, pain, and lower back pain, and the leg muscles are hurting. But the other phases, it's more emotional, it's more mental, and that also affects your training and your performance. So it is so much
absolutely.
more important to look at the entire picture rather than just those 3 to 7 days, which is very short in comparison to the entire cycle. So, just to, since you coach, right? So, you coach both men and women. I just wanted to know, what is your approach when you're coaching women? Is it, do you have a different plan for them? What are the considerations you make while you're training a female client?
So, actually, that's a really good question. So, as a female athlete, it doesn't matter where you are in your journey in fitness, you should track your entire menstrual cycle. Track it month on month. There are apps for it. I use the Fitter
Yeah.
Woman app, just, for people that are joined in and want to know which app to use. And what it does is basically it helps you keep track of where you are in your cycle, because it's important to know where you are, because the way you hydrate yourself, how much rest you get, what you're eating at different phases of your cycle matters a lot. Now, in my coaching philosophy, every individual is different, male or female. So the program for each individual is actually customized, right? For women, actually, in my first conversation with them is, when was the last time you had your period? Do you track your cycle? And interestingly, I feel like it differs. That spectrum is so big, right? If it's a new runner, most of them have no idea, right? But if it's a regular runner, because she's had issues before, she'll probably track it. But there are also absolute beginners that have had PCOD or PCOS and have been running to sort of combat those hormonal issues. They are really aware of where they are, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And there will also be female runners that have absolutely no clue. People like me, who have never really had to deal with body weight issues and things like that. But it's really, really important to track that. So at every step of a Fit Rabbit, my coaching business is called Fit Rabbits. Female Fit Rabbit, every week when we speak, we sort of go over each day, depending on where you are in the cycle. And like I said, there are different times when you need to do high intensity work. That, especially during the luteal, which is the high hormone phase, a lot of us don't necessarily want to do high intensity training work. But you lower the intensity down a little bit, add in a little bit more strength and more mobility, for instance. That really helps. But more than anything, what you eat actually fuels you. So a lot of the work goes, just because as humans, we just have a love hate relationship with food, right? And with women, it's just more complicated. Just because during PMS, you want to eat all of this fully knowing that it's not going to make you necessarily perform well the next day, right? So
Yeah.
monitoring that, what you're eating, how much you're eating, is very important. And throughout the cycle, one of the things, key pieces that every female client goes through, is learning to fuel before their workouts. The female body is not really healthy in the long term to do fasted workouts. I know there is a lot of people out there that do that, but increasingly research is indicating that it leads to hormonal fluctuations and affects the endocrine system in a big way, especially if you are an endurance athlete. Sure, if you are someone who's really trying to lose weight and are doing it through a combination of strength work, walking, you can find a balance there, right, where you can
Yeah.
probably still do a fasted workout. But when I'm talking for a specific endurance athlete who's out there running an hour to 4 hours or cycling for that duration, you need to eat before your workouts, irrespective of where you are in your cycle. The final piece actually is strength workout. As we grow older, as women, Indian women anyway have weaker bones, right? We are genetically deficient in vitamin D, and we have B12 issues as well. So, monitoring that is a key piece. So every time someone joins in, I encourage them to do a blood test. I mean, a lot of us get lazy about doing a blood test, but it's really important uh, to do a blood test, every 6 to 8 months, in my opinion. And there
Yeah.
have been cases, where someone's come to me because they've been injured and they haven't been able to figure out why. And they've been running, or, they've been working with someone else who's been constantly like sort of making them run or do rehab. My point is, stop doing everything, get a blood test. Then we sort of work backwards, with a general physician and consult. Most often than not, it's a low vitamin D, B12, your magnesium is low, you have low protein. There are a lot of issues. I'm having issues post COVID with a lot of these things, right? My whole body hurts because of the higher inflammation in my body right now post COVID. So I think, I as a coach personally work very hands on with all my clients. With my female clients specifically, sometimes it's just as easy as sending a message saying, hey, I'm not feeling it today, and I'd quickly just pick up the phone and be like, okay, what's wrong, right? And often it's like, I'm feeling lack of motivation. So I'd be like, okay, how badly do you want to get to your goal, right? Ultimately, you work backwards to it. So then, the conversation is, yeah, I really want to do it. I was like, have you eaten anything? Did you take enough protein as part of your dinner yesterday? And
Hmm.
through a bunch of questions, we sort of figure out that, fueling right the previous day or throughout the day, did you drink enough water? Because we don't realize the importance of water in our lives. We all lead stressful lives, and if it's somebody who's a mother who works full time, there you don't pay attention to yourself as much as you should.
Yeah.
So I even set calendar reminders with my clients to remind them to drink water, because, you know, 2% loss of water causes severe dehydration, and women are more prone to dehydration. Women don't do well in the heat. So again, you need to remember to hydrate properly, and that doesn't necessarily always mean water, right? When you are training
Yeah.
for a 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, ultra marathon, especially in our Indian conditions.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
think.
go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the approach here that you have mentioned, that tracking your cycle, tracking each, how are you feeling, and how much do you train on this particular day, how do you feel like, it reduces so much of the guesswork, that why am I not able to do it, or suddenly you start noticing this pattern, and then you can sort of design your plan around it. And it's a really great approach, and I'm glad to know that you're taking it. One thing that I wanted you to highlight was the fueling, right? The way you said that it's so important to fuel right before your training sessions, and fasting really doesn't work. So how important is fueling when, can you just touch upon this? Because I think we were having this conversation earlier, and you said, you also made a post about it, that the recovery mix works really well for you at a certain stage in your menstrual cycle. So this just tells me of how mindful you need to be, to really understand what is working for your body. So how do you really fuel? What is fueling right when it comes to training through your menstrual cycle?
So, one thing that is really difficult for us to remember, but really important, is I am different from everybody else. My journey is mine. And
Yeah,
just this basic thing where, because we know as humans, we're competitive, or, it's very easy to get carried away listening to somebody else because something else may be working for that person. So, one of the most grounding things I feel like we can do is every time we feel stressed about something, we just remind ourselves that it's my journey. I will do it the way I want to do it, right?
correct.
But fueling actually is a lot of trial and error. And I've learned it the hard way as well. There have been times when I've sort of overeaten before my long runs,
Hmm.
and then too soon before my long runs. You know, so I'll just tell you about some of my learnings and then sort of give my recommendations. Or so I would say try and eat two pieces of bread with peanut butter or almond butter and jam while driving to a run. I get off the car, do a quick warm up. Most often I'm late, so I don't even get to do that, and I start running. 15 minutes is not enough for that solid meal to digest. So obviously,
Yeah,
7 8 kilometers down the line, I start feeling sick. My stomach is
yeah,
hurting, I'm just feeling breathless, I'm just feeling off. And I won't realize that it's because I didn't give enough gap. I'll be like, oh, I'm going too
right.
far, or I'm not doing well. And as soon as I tell myself that I'm not doing well, everything else goes steadily downhill, because then I'm drinking too much water, right? And drinking too much water but not enough electrolytes is going to make me feel more sick. So that's
Yeah.
one learning that I've had. The second learning is, once I took a pre workout mix during a workout, and this is during a marathon. Uh,
Okay.
and that was completely my error. I didn't see the
Hmm.
different color tag of the pre-drinks mix and the during drinks mix, and I just sort of mixed it in my thing, and I threw up 3 times during a marathon, right? Because
Oh my God.
obviously I took too much for
Yeah.
an activity that I was doing, because that was supposed to be a loading thing. So, basically you will end up learning a lot. So I have also discovered that eating one banana before most of my workouts works really well. It
Hmm.
is good enough calories, but most of my workouts means when I'm not doing a heavy speed workout. If I'm doing a heavy speed workout, I would take the banana, but I would still take I'll take about 600 milliliters of the drinks mix. I'll take
Hmm.
half of it about 45 minutes with the banana before a run, so that it
Hmm.
digests. And
Yeah.
just before I'm sort of getting ready, right after my warm up, I would finish about 150 milliliters of it. So essentially I've
Hmm.
taken enough carbohydrates, because
Correct.
we need to remember that food isn't just protein, right? To be
Yeah.
performing well, you need to be eating a wholesome meal that includes carbohydrates and fats in addition to the protein.
Correct.
So fueling is, again, like it's trial and error. There have been times that I've recommended, oh, eat a banana and have some electrolytes before 60-minute workout, and some people have felt too full and have not enjoyed it, right?
Yeah.
They probably just okay, just taking the banana and drinking some plain water.
Hmm.
um, One of the things that I've learned is, when I am on my period, my requirement for electrolytes increases. I feel more dehydrated very easily,
Okay.
but I feel less hungry throughout the day. So that's one of the discoveries that I've had, because I try and log everything when I'm on my period. And I've discovered that, if I take a scoop of protein or I eat additional protein in my dinner, nearly every day, irrespective of where I am in my cycle, I not only
Hmm.
sleep better, but I wake up feeling a little more rested. I don't know how else to explain it. So, there have been times when I feel, especially during PMS, because I have talked about it openly. Ever since
Hmm.
I've been on the other side of 35, it's been really difficult because um, I just feel inflamed all the time, right? And increasingly, I'm beginning to realize that even though I monitor how much carbohydrates, protein, and fat I eat on a daily basis by sort of logging my meals on an app, I don't do this on a regular basis, right? If I feel something's wrong, I'll do that for 2 3 days, and automatically I get to know. And I've not been eating enough protein. No matter how much one tries, on an Indian diet, it's really difficult to get the protein that one needs to be
Yeah,
training for a marathon. Um,
that's
Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question completely, but basically, what I would recommend to people is that obviously listen to your body, but remember, carbs are your friend. Fats are really good to help reduce inflammation and in assisting recovery. But maintain a good balance of food. Eat healthy carbohydrates. I feel like a lot of us end up eating stuff like bread pakoda or deep fried things right after a long heavy workout because we want to treat ourselves. But I'm not sure that's the best thing to do because obviously, you need to eat healthier for your body to recover faster. So eat before a workout for sure, especially if your workout is something very intense or if it's long, even though it's
hmm.
easy. The second part is during your workout. I'm going to keep it specific to running, just because uh, I feel like a lot of people who may have tuned in for that. During, you need to definitely stay hydrated, and like I've mentioned, hydration does not mean just water, especially if you are in conditions like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, where it's hot and also humid, because when you sweat, you
Yeah,
not only just sweat water out, you sweat salts out, and by salts it isn't just sodium, you sweat out magnesium and potassium as well. So try and get some electrolytes. There are salt pills that you can take. I take them once every hour, but that works for me. Again, you're going to have to find a balance. Some people like taking 2 per hour because they are really heavy sweaters. I also don't weigh much, so you'll have to find the right balance, and the right way to do that is to weigh yourself before you head out for a run and right after you're back. And depending on how much sweat you've lost, you can calculate that. Feel free to reach out to me to sort of provide guidance on that. But in addition to the electrolytes, you also need to fuel, especially if you're doing a workout longer than an hour. You in hot and humid conditions, my recommendation is to get in about minimum of 100 calories per hour of carbohydrates. I'm just giving the minimum amount. It can also be more depending on how much you can digest, because I know people that take a lot more, especially if you're participating in an ultra running event.
yeah,
Then the post part, the post and activities, especially a long run, a long ride, a very heavy HIIT workout, maybe you went cross for a CrossFit workout. We need to fuel as women within 40 minutes of our workouts. And when I say fuel, you need to eat enough carbohydrates and protein, which is why I like the Unived, the recovery mix, because it's super easy to carry. I carry that with me everywhere. I mean, people even ask me where my dabbas are because I have my water bottle, I have my protein shaker, and I'll probably carry some fruit or something like that. But you need to remember that as women, we are different. We are not made the same way as men. Men can go up to 4 hours, uh, without really needing to fuel and still recover just fine. It's just how the physiology works. But for us, that 40-minute window is very important because that's when our body is most receptive to sending whatever we eat to the blood, to the muscles for recovery. And that recovery is key, especially when you're in your luteal, which is the high hormone phase. Because right after that, what happens? Your body, see, what happens? You are already pretty inflamed from the high hormone phase, right? And you've
Yeah.
just done strenuous activity. You've stressed yourself quite a lot. Your body is going to go into a survival mode where things start shutting down and is not receptive to
Yeah.
the food that you're eating. And that can also lead to gut issues. But if you try
Mm.
and give something that's rich in protein, good in carbs, and obviously fats will be a part of that automatically, you tell your body to stop fighting, to relax, and it sends in the key nutrients for recovery. And as you get home, you shower and then you eat a wholesome meal, right? Um, that's very important to do. And finally, recovery isn't just about fueling. You need to sleep enough. I've read some scary incidents over the last 2 years because of COVID as well, where people have gone out doing stuff too soon after COVID. And I'm constantly reminding myself of the same thing because I got COVID, in June, that I
Yeah.
need to slow down and listen to my body because people are not recovering enough. They're going back to work. They are going back to training right after this. And, COVID is not a regular flu. Similarly, irrespective of what intensity or ability level you're training at, you need to listen to your body. You need to get in those 6 to 8 hours of sleep. I think 6 hours is too less. I recommend everyone to get average it at 7 hours of sleep. Put your phones away 30 to 45 minutes before you go to sleep. I personally really have benefited from the magnesium, and I do, like I mentioned before, I do try and take, either if I don't eat enough protein at dinner, which happens quite frequently, I do take a scoop of protein before I go to bed. I've heard a lot of people take milk before they go to bed because it soothes you, but a hot drink actually does help you relax in a big
Yeah.
way. But you know it has to be a holistic approach. It can't be just one thing. You can't just keep training. You can't just keep focusing only on your food. You need to do that strength training as well, because um, and fueling during strength also is very similar to eating your protein right after a heavy strength workout, because that's when your body is most receptive to getting the fuel. And for women, strength training becomes even more important because that adds resistance to your body, helps make your bones stronger. And as and when you age more and more, it's recommended actually to lift heavier, right? And obviously do that depending on where you are in your journey. Everybody's journey is personal. So, while I could be comfortable lifting 30 kilos, you may, be okay just lifting 10 kilos, right? And that we slowly
Yeah.
build that up. And again, remind yourself that this is your own individual journey, so that, and it's okay to feel scared, it's okay to feel anxious, it's okay to feel competitive, but don't cause your body any harm.
Correct. I think this bit was really, a lot of people can take away so many things from uh, this answer of yours. I mean, starting right from the fueling, it's um, like you said, it's a personal journey. It's trial and error, right? For everybody, different things work, because even in the cycle, even though we all have the same four cycles, the way we react to these cycles and the way we behave in these cycles are very different. And we need to train and design our training accordingly. So, thank you for sharing. That was very interesting to know. Also, your learnings and how you tried and tested the products and what works for you was interesting. One thing that I was curious about was, so while you register for a race, do you look at the dates and go like, okay, this is this falls in my dash phase of the menstrual cycle, and do you sort of train in a way that you can perform like efficiently in that phase? Is it what you guys do like in general?
No. I've run now 8 marathons. Actually, I've run 9 marathons, and I think 6 or 7 of them have been during my period. uh, yeah, I mean, I complain about it because it gets a little uncomfortable, to be honest. But you just remind yourself that okay, it's really not a big deal. I mean, I as an athlete keep three different scenarios in my head when I'm racing. One is a super competitive one is probably a little bit more realistic one, and one is, if everything goes wrong, I'm just going to finish. And there have been times I've run the Mumbai marathon, the marathon distance, 5 times, and I
Hmm.
think the first 3 times I ran it, I was on my period. And it was just absolutely horrible because back then I was still a new marathon runner. And those were my first 3 marathons that I ran. And
Yeah.
I wasn't a coach back then. This is way back in 2012 was when I ran my first marathon. So 10 years ago, right? And, there wasn't
Hmm.
enough information out there for, training the
Yeah.
female body, right? But I'm much smarter now. Actually, now it doesn't really impact me as much. Sure, PMS impacts me, it affects me, but I just try to plan my life a little better. It helps that I have a really incredible support system. My husband's super supportive. Uh, so it really helps me from that front. But you have to plan it. You have to be kind to yourself. Again, goes back to that thing. And I'm increasingly sort of, telling myself I'm running Chicago this year, right, in October, and I've not been able to train for the last 1 month since I got COVID.
Yeah.
I'm constantly, there are two sides of me, right? One side is constantly in this panic state, and the other side of me is, being like the more calmer person, saying, listen, this is COVID. It's not a joke. People are actually dying from having done too
Yeah.
much. So I think it's just about planning, right? It's managing your personal life and your training as an athlete life. I also feel like one needs to surround themselves with the right set of individuals who'll call you out when you're pushing yourself too much, not eating enough, or not eating the right things, not getting enough sleep, for instance, drinking too much. And I've been blessed with that. I have an incredible support system and an incredible supportive community. I've had people who've shown up at 5 o'clock in the morning for me to do my speed workout while they've sort of ensure I have water and things like that, right? So I feel like it's all about planning. But again, I'm probably at the other end of the spectrum where bleeding does not make a big difference to me. But
Yeah.
again, give yourself a chance, uh, and you'd be surprised at what you are capable of if you just set your mind and align your body to it.
Yeah. Thank you, Nivedita. It was wonderful to chat with you. So, usually we end all of our lives with a quick rapid fire session. So,
Yes,
I'll ask you a few questions and you can answer only in a word or a sentence. Okay?
sure.
So, yeah. The first question is a race day ritual that you never skip.
A race day that I would never skip.
A race day ritual that you never skip.
Oh, I make overnight soaked oatmeal the night before my race, irrespective of where I am. And there are, there's coconut milk, there is a banana, and some nuts that I add to it when I wake up the next morning. And there's a very specific Darjeeling tea. This seems really stupid, but I've growing up, my family always drank Darjeeling tea, and it was always this one particular kind of Darjeeling tea. So I carry that with me for a race. So I need to have a hot mug of that, and I need to foam roll because I'm a very anxious person, and my
Hmm.
shoulders tend to tighten up. So I'll wake up, I'll shower, I will foam roll, and then eat my breakfast, and then yeah, that's my ritual.
That was interesting. Um, who is your first phone call after a race?
My husband.
Your favorite Unived product?
Oh, this is a difficult one, but I would say it's has to be the post run mix because I have it after every long run, after every hard workout. Uh, I'm doing that for what, 4 years now.
Yeah. One thing that you like most about being a coach?
The diverse, incredible people across all ages I get to work with.
Amazing. A life lesson that being a runner has taught you.
Having stayed injury free for the last 5 years, I think strength training is something one needs to do regularly and religiously because
Yeah.
otherwise you will end up getting injured, and it's happened to me nearly all my life. So I'm very proud of the fact that strength training is something I've learned to do over the years.
Yeah. Especially runners who are just starting out and uh, just really focusing on the running aspect need to also focus on strength training because it
Yeah,
goes hand in hand, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you for sharing this your incredible knowledge with us. It's amazing to really talk about this because there's not much information out there. And thank you, especially you being a female athlete yourself and having trained so many other female athletes. What we talked about, I mean, it just adds so much more value coming from you. So thank you for sharing. And we hope to host more lives and speak about this topic even more in detail. So thank you for joining Nivedita.
Thank you so much for having me.
Uh,
And I feel like we've only really touched the tip of the iceberg. There's so much to talk about, especially with
yeah,
this topic. I mean,
yeah. So if you
okay.
want to reach out to Nivedita, her socials and her website is linked below. You all can check it out and always reach out to her. Let us know what you guys want us to cover in the lives to come, and see you guys next week. Thank you for joining.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.